and I am so excited to have Luticha André Doucette here with me today as my guest. Hi, Luticha.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is so cool.
So, thank you all for joining us. Luticha is an award winning disability justice expert, the owner of Catalyst Consulting, the author of Cultivating an Intersectional Mindset, a 30-day guided journal. And Lutitia also wrote a really wonderful piece for us in New Mobility on self-worth and shame. So I recommend going to our website and searching for that and reading that because it's really powerful and wonderful. So to get started, Letitia, how about you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, like where you're based and what your disability is?
Sure. Let me quickly start with an image description for folks.
Yes.
I am a honey colored kind of black person. I'm wearing hot pink rose earrings made by my friend, purple lipstick, and a black top and black head wrap, and a very sparkly hot pink bangle set.
Those
So
earrings are
that's my
friend is really talented. Um,
She is.
yeah,
Her business is Shop Bobby Rose. If y'all want
yeah.
a pair, tell her I sent you. So I'm currently in Rochester, New York. I've actually lived here for a long time. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And I live right by the lake, and that is awesome. And so, what was the other part of the question?
Oh,
Sorry, it's like a TBI
what
day.
your disability is.
Well, I have a brain injury, so there's that, and an incomplete spinal cord injury. I'm a quadriplegic, so that's me.
Uh,
Some other things.
Joining us, hello, and feel free to comment in the comments section. If you have any questions, put them there as well. Uh, Letitia, let's talk about your book, uh, Cultivating an Intersectional Mindset, a 30-day guided journal. First of all, congratulations for putting it out there in the world. That's no easy feat to get a book out there. So I congratulations. So first off, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what an intersectional mindset is and why it's important.
Sure, and thanks so much. Yeah, it was super scary, especially as a self-published author, right? You put it out there and you're like, I hope people use it.
Totally.
Especially given now, like today in today's world, we talk about intersectionalness and intersectionality, right? And I don't think people understand exactly what that is. It's not just about the identities that we hold. It's about these different kind of isms that are going around, right? We talk about racism, ableism, patriarchy, that kind of thing. And so I often think about when people are like, where do I get started with advocacy? Where do I just begin? And all like the stuff that's going around in this world. Well, how do you start with yourself, right? How do you cultivate, just like these plants behind me, right? You got to cultivate it. You got to plant a seed, make sure that soil is good, and then you got to work on it. You just can't neglect it and then it dies, right? That's what cultivating an intersectional mindset is. And so this is a way for you to kind of get that soil fertile
Yeah.
so that you can kind of grow the seeds of change, if that is too, authory to say, but that's really what that is.
Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit about what people will find inside the book? Because it is like very much you guide us. It's a journal that you guide us through. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so these are really challenging, which it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Challenging prompts that really say, what are your values? Where do they come from? What is power? Because we talk about power a lot. Do we really know what that means? And so giving like real, concise, and, thought-provoking challenges so that we can begin to say, all right, I want to be an advocate. I want to be an activist. How do I go about making change? So hopefully at the end of the 30 days, your mind is transformed. And now you're really able to tackle these larger advocacy issues with a little bit more knowledge than just I sat and read a book.
Yeah, I think it's so important because I know, just to speak personally, it's like I go, go, go. I'm working on this. I'm advocating for this. I'm doing this. I'm working on this. And I don't know the last time, or honestly, if I've ever just sat down and been like, okay, Teal, what are my values? What, where am I from? What's my history? What do I do? What am I do? Who am I? What do I, and it's really, I think it's really wonderful. And
Hey,
yeah, so yes, yay. Um,
you can get the book.
yes, and where can I find the book?
So you can find it on Amazon or from a Black-owned union print shop here in Rochester, and you can follow bit.ly, /CatCon Journal, and that'll get you there. Or you can go to the link tree in my bio, and you can kind of find it there. So, and I am the only Luticha André Doucette that exists in the entire world. So, like, my books and my work are actually really easy to find. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Appreciate you for that name.
So February was Black History Month, and you posted so much great content on your Instagram. And one of the things you addressed was the erasure of Black disabled activists from Black history and disability history. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that. And I know you've kind of been researching Black disabled activists and working on a piece about that. And I'd love for you just to like talk to us about that.
Sure. This is something that when I was growing up, I didn't really know about Black disabled activism and history outside of like Stevie Wonder, right? And so, you couldn't tell me nothing. It was me and Stevie Wonder, and that was like it. And yet, when I got older, meeting Keith Jones, Anita Cameron, and so many different other Black disabled activists who were like, whoa, 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 this actually goes back, way back. Even Harriet Tubman had a disability. And I was like, say what?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
what? Because like it's never really talked about.
Mhm.
And that goes back to our enslavement, right? Where disability was seen as a punishment for running away, so they would chop off a hand or a foot or something like that, right? We saw this in like Roots, but it never really connected that this was seen as like a bad thing, something that wasn't really talked about. There's also the history of, if you had some sort of disability or whatnot, were sold by the dozen, right? Because it took like a dozen of you to equal like one non-disabled enslaved person. So this was all throughout the history, but erased. And then when it came to the disability rights movement, right? Growing up, my mom was like, "Well, that's not for you," right? And I would be like, "Well, what does that even mean?" And so, she's like, "They don't really care about us." Like, well, okay. So, really thinking about disability rights, you always see it's always the face of white people.
Mm-hmm.
And then really going into seeing like where were the disabled Black activists? Why aren't they, here today? They're not here today for some of the same reasons that we're still seeing: health disparities, housing disparities, all of these different inequities that are happening with Black disabled people. So part of me being a writer, and hopefully this will come out in New Mobility, I've been interviewing different Black disabled activists about the history, where we are today, and where should we be in the future. And that's why I did that whole series for Black History Month, because I don't think anyone else is out there. And Imani Barbarin and Melissa Thompson
Mm-hmm.
have done this kind of work in the past, but we still need to kind of remix it and bring it to the fold every now and again for people to remember that, Sojourner Truth and all these really great people that we know about also were Black and disabled. And I think that does something for everyone else to see that we're not just here kind of on the sidelines. We are actually, the harbingers of change. We're the ones who are also kind of fighting for freedom, liberation, etc. So
Yeah.
hopefully y'all will see this article soon.
Yes. And let's see, Will H. Uh, Fried said people in the disability community during the independent living movement always talk about Ed Roberts, but we don't talk about the independent living center that Brad Lomax had, which was smaller. Um,
Yeah.
so Thank you for that comment.
Yeah, Brad Moment. Thank you. Will is like one of our super fans at Catalyst Consulting.
Oh, good.
And I love how
Oh, thank
like yeah, he's so engaged. So hey Will.
And Stuart
Um
Tucker Lundry says, hello. Hello, Stuart. Hello, everybody. Thanks for your hearts and your love.
that's awesome.
Yes. So let's talk about advocacy and how we can be better advocates. So I know for me personally, I've been disabled for 25 years, and I found myself advocating for different things. Usually something personal will happen to me, and then I realize this is also all happening to the disability community, and then I'm like, we have to do something. I want to do something. But sometimes it can be like, where do you start? And it's easy to just to talk about something or to tweet about something, but how do we actually create change? So I wonder if you could talk about, like, let's say for instance, like just an example is, and it's something we've been seeing a lot of lately, at least publicized lately on social media and in the news, is let's say I'm flying somewhere and my wheelchair, they bring my wheelchair to me after the flight and it's been destroyed. And I know this has also happened to some of my friends. I've seen people post about it and write about it on social media. I'm done. This is happening way too much. Airlines and airports, our wheelchairs are getting destroyed. Enough is enough. I'm going to do something. Like, what advice would you have for somebody just kind of in those earlier stages, like, you know, wanting to start that?
That's a good question. I always, talk about when we're getting into that like personal thing, it's a passion, right? But passion is like very fleeting. And so you have to kind of go deeper into like purpose, right? And also you can't do it by yourself. I think a lot of times like I'm going to be the one to make change when changes happen collectively. So the first thing you got to do is just do some research. Who else is out there kind of talking about the exact same thing that you are?
Mm-hmm.
Who can you lend your voice to? Right? Who is it that, maybe is the most impacted? Because sometimes, especially with things like flying is a very privileged activity, right? And so what does that mean for maybe people who can't fly? Maybe who, why aren't they able to access all of these different things? So kind of start with, why am I doing this? Who benefits from this situation, continuing to happen, right? You have one job, airlines, to get people from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so difficult, right? And then getting into who else is doing that advocacy and really asking these important questions. Because, like when we think of, especially recently with Ingracia passing away,
Mm-hmm.
from like the series of events, right? Like no one should have to pass away because their wheelchair gets broken by the airline and then all this other stuff happening. And see it not as an individual act by, this one particular company, but as system wide, a systematic, not failure, but design, right? You know, things don't necessarily fail. We kind of design them to be that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so why might that be? What is the underlying pinnings of that? And what are the commonalities to what else is happening in the world? Because it's, again, nothing is ever isolated from each other.
Yeah,
Hope that makes sense.
totally. Thank you. Very helpful. And you've also said change happens from where you're at, which I think is really important. I wonder if you could just like elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. A lot of my advocacy has been at the local level. People often like, why I've never heard of you. It's like, because I'm here in Rochester,
Yeah.
right? This is my home and I want my home to be as accessible as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can make change, whether it's in your church group, whether it's in your volleyball club, like wherever you are, that is where change can happen. And I especially think like now, local politics often gets ignored. And I'm like, that's wild because that is where kind of the rubber meets the road for advocacy. And we need more advocacy at the local level than, as well as the national level, right? You can make that change in your hometown and there's a path to do it, but you got to have a strategy.
Yeah. I love that. And also too, I know we've talked about like there's different ways to advocate for things. And because I know sometimes with social media you get on and you see, well, so and so's doing this and so so's doing that, and sometimes I'm like, oh, why aren't I doing that? I should be doing that. Or look, they're speaking so eloquently like that. I should be, and it's also just realizing like, no, maybe that's not my area, and that's okay. I have my area that I do, and so it's just kind of like I think being in tune with that as well.
Yeah, we all have gifts, right? And when you're kind of moving within your gift, that is where, the magic actually happens, right? And that's where we kind of move from like passion to purpose,
Mhm.
right? And so I am not I am not an actress. You're not gonna see me,
Yeah.
like with this brain injury, I don't know if memorizing a script is within my gift to do. But we have you, right? And we have all these different people who can say, how do we collectively move? If there's an issue that, you're seeing in the film industry, right?
Yeah.
You can pick up the phone and be like, hey, Luticha, I know that you do diversity, equity, inclusion. How do we kind of get you in the room,
Yeah.
right? I'm always looking for, I don't have to do all the things, and I don't like y'all. I'm nearly 37 years into the spinal cord injury. I am tired. I want to be like Enya and like own a castle on an island with cats. Like that is like the goal. So you have to put other people in positions, right?
Hmm.
So that they can sign and that they can have their gifts.
Yeah.
And I do what I do. I'm an author. Please buy the book, right?
Yes.
And then that find your gift and how you want to be able to make the changes, right?
Yeah.
And do it collectively. Like it's so much better when we're working together. I
Whole,
just feel that way.
like lift each other up, work together. Yes. Uh, I want to talk to you about adaptive sports, which I know is something else that you're really I don't want to say passionate, but maybe passionate about, or it's very meaningful to you as adaptive sports. And so, what are some of the adaptive sports you like to do, and like why do you feel like that's so important to have that?
Oh my goodness. I'm dealing with an injury, so I haven't been able to fence. And fencing has been a joy in my life. I hope my coach is watching. It is like the biggest stress reliever to be able to like legally stab somebody and like just get your frustrations out and to have that like supportive environment. Fencing has also been one of those things as a quadriplegic, you know, challenging me to move my bodies in ways that I didn't think that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a different like mindset that you have to be in. But I've done kayaking, hand cycling, I've skydived.
I have two. Oh,
Highly recommend. Like awesome.
I,
It was
I,
not with any like adaptive program though. Let me
yours was an adaptive program.
comment.
No, mine wasn't. It was just like, you know, just go, go.
Just strap yourself to somebody
Then
and go.
kill us on the way down. It's so funny because I look back on that and I did that in my early 20s and I'm 41 now. And I'm like, what was I thinking? I would never do that now. No way. Yeah.
Yeah, I ripped all the ligaments in my knee because nobody told me what kind of shoes to wear. So I just wore boots because like I'm bougie. And so we did the somersault and that was a lot of fun. And when the chute was deployed, like all I saw was like my knee just kind of go like this, and my boot, and it's caught on video. The boot just goes flying out into the distance. My foot hit my
Oh
face.
no.
I remember like crying and saying "ow," and I was strapped to my friend's husband. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, but what are we gonna do about it? We're up here."
Yeah.
So then I get to, we land and all that other stuff. It's like, oh, this is amazing. The next day, my knee was like 3 times its size. And I go to the ER and I said, okay, I hurt my knee in a skydiving accident. And the admin person was like, you were paralyzed in a skydiving accident yesterday? And I was like, no, no, no. Wheelchair came first, skydiving came
Yeah.
second. And yeah, so that was the first and last time I did that. But one of my other Ms. Wheelchair friends, she's a quadriplegic, and I think she's got over 200 dives. Like that's one of her favorite things to do. And she does it with an adaptive program.
Yeah.
So highly recommend that you seek professionals. Don't just be out here like Teal and I dropping ourselves to people. No, don't do that.
And for the best. You just said Miss Wheelchair people. Like, so were you Miss? Were you Miss Wheelchair? Yes.
Yeah, it was Ms. Wheelchair New York 2011.
Yay! How was that?
Awesome.
The program and being in that position to advocate and having that platform. Like, how was that?
That was kind of, I think, a pivotal thing in my advocacy because a lot of the things that I was doing, yes, I was doing it for other people, but when you become like a representative, right? Like now, this is not me, Luticha, this is me representing a brand and then representing, all disabled people in the state of New York, right? And having to learn how to speak about issues, having to learn how to talk to elected officials, businesses, all of that, right? That really kind of shifted and prepared me for where I am now, right? Because you have to be able to say, like, truly remove yourself. Like, yes, I am impacted by these issues, but I might be talking about things for, blind individuals. I might have to be knowledgeable about things with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So it really expanded my view of what disability actually is and what advocacy is, right?
Yeah.
And that you can be able to kind of remove yourself and be able like this is broader than I am, as well as the sisterhood that I've developed with many other Ms. Wilchers. You'll see us out on these streets doing a lot of fantastic things. It also taught me about, I am a highly competitive person. Like you put me in a sport and be like, Tisha, do you want to win the Shining? I'm like, absolutely. But this was more about developing friendship and not just about winning like the major crown and going off and do I can buy a crown and still do things, right? But it's about the camaraderie and it's about what you do after your time too, right? So many of us who, didn't win the national have gone on to do like really, really great things. So, and I think that is like a good approach to that type of a competition.
Yes.
And who doesn't love a pageant? Like I just love pageants. I'm from my family from the South, okay?
Yeah.
So child, pageants are where it's at for me.
Yeah, I want to judge one. Have you gotten to judge? Now that okay.
I've gotten to judge the nationals as well as New York State. So, and one of the nationals, like Barb Zablotny, which you should totally have her on New Mobility Live. She is amazing and, does all of these really great things and has really transformed how she's run her pageant in Pennsylvania. And she was a Torrid model recently, so the Torrid's first disabled model. So she's awesome. She would kill it on this.
Great.
Have her on.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, to see real quick if we have any questions. To wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share besides get Luticha's book? Get it.
You can buy the book. I have my copy. Look at us.
Yay. Yay.
So definitely get the book and definitely, when you're thinking about your advocacy, your life, I'm not saying that everyone has to be, an advocate at some level or whatnot, but understand that you can create change within your own family, with your own spaces, and even just seeing yourself in a different way. And that 37 years into this spinal cord injury, right? You can live. That's like the biggest thing is that they don't tell us that we can have lives, and that you're just going to be like somewhere, off on the sidelines. And you can just have a really good life.
Yeah.
And you can do some of the things that you want to do, and you're just going to have to do them a little bit differently and think outside of the box. I think people don't give us credit for being creative. Even just how we get around in our own homes and just make it work. So find community, go online. If we're here at New Mobility, subscribe.
Yeah.
Do what you can.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you, Luticha, for all this greatness. You're amazing. I'm so glad that you joined me today. And thank you all for being here with us. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Teal. Bye.
Bye.